Hello everyone and welcome to today's edition of the Daf Yomi. Today's Daf is Shevuot Daf 19 Amud B. The Gemara asks, does Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda really exempt him in all of these cases? Even in the first case where he walked on both of the paths and did not purify himself in between. This is difficult as whichever way you look at it, he's impure, since he certainly contracted impurity on one of two paths. Rabbi said, what are we dealing with here? We are dealing with a case where he walked on the first path. If there were two paths in a certain place, one impure and the other pure, if someone walked on one of them and then forgot he had done so and walked on the other one, so that he certainly contracted written impurity, and then he forgot that he was impure and entered the temple or partook of sacrificial food, and then he became aware of all he had forgotten, he is liable to bring an offering, because partial awareness of a definite impurity is considered a complete awareness, in accordance with the opinion of the first Tana and the Gemara's explanation. 11:6. And then afterward, when he was walking on the second path, he forgot that he already walked on the first path, so that his lapse of awareness when he entered the temple was only a lapse of partial awareness. That is, when he entered the temple, he forgot that he had walked on the first path, and for this lapse of knowledge by itself, he is not liable to bring a sin offering, as it is not certain that he contracted impurity there. Rabbi continues. The Tanaim disagree with regard to this issue. The first Tana teaches that Rabbi Shimon deems a person exempt only where there was purification between the two entries, but not in the first case, maintains that we say that partial awareness of definite impurity is counted as complete awareness. And Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda, who teaches Rabbi Shimon deems the person exempt even in the first case, where there was no purification between the two entries, maintains that we do not say that partial awareness of definite impurity is counted as complete awareness. The Brisa teaches, if he walked on the first path and entered the temple, and on the third day he was sprinkled, so what's the footnote? If there were two paths in a certain place, one impure and the other pure, and someone walked on one of them and then entered the temple or partook of sacrificial food, he is exempt from bringing an offering, as there is no certainty that he had contracted impurity. If after walking on one path he entered the temple and was then sprinkled with waters of purification on the third and seventh days, and he immersed in a ritual bath, and then he walked on the other path and again entered the temple, he is liable to bring an offering. Since he certainly entered the temple in a state of impurity, either the first or the second time, even though each time he entered, this followed awareness of an uncertain impurity, the sages treated awareness of uncertain impurity like definite awareness. This is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, and the opinions of held in cases where he and Reish Lakish disagree. That's from the Rambam, 11:7, with water of purification, and on the seventh day he was sprinkled again, he immersed in a ritual bath, and then he walked on the second path and entered the temple. He is liable to bring a sin offering, and Rabbi Shimon deemed him exempt for bringing an offering. The Gemara asks, but why is he liable according to the first Tana? Each time he entered the temple is only with a lapse of awareness of uncertain impurity. Suffer Yediyah, an awareness of uncertain impurity. To be precise, the case is one of definite awareness of an uncertain situation. That is to say, one knows with certainty that he walked along a certain path, but there is uncertainty as to whether or not the path is impure, and consequently, whenever he became aware of this situation, he has only awareness of uncertain impurity. The first time because he might have not yet have become impure, and the second time because he might already have purified himself. Rabbi Yochanan says here, since he certainly contracted impurity on one of the paths and entered the temple in a state of impurity, they made awareness of uncertain impurity like awareness of definite impurity. And Reish Lakish says, in accordance with whose opinion is this? In accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel, who says, we do not require any awareness of impurity whatsoever at the beginning, before he enters the temple, and it suffices if it becomes known to him at the end that he had been impure at the time of his entry. And the Gemara raises a contradiction between this statement of Rabbi Yochanan and another statement of Rabbi Yochanan. And the Gemara raises a contradiction between this statement of Reish Lakish and another statement of Reish Lakish. As it is taught in the Brisa, if one ate an item concerning which there was uncertainty as to whether or not it was forbidden fat, and he later became aware of it, and he then ate some other item concerning which there was uncertainty as to whether or not it was forbidden fat, and he later became aware of it, Rabbi Yehuda says, just as he would bring a sin offering for each and every one of his instances of consumption were he to learn that what he ate was actually forbidden fat, so too he brings a provisional guilt offering, brought by one who is uncertain as to whether he committed a transgression that requires a sin offering for each and every one of his instances of consumption. If after each instance he became aware that he might have eaten forbidden fat. Maybe Asham Talu al kol echad ve'echad. He brings a provisional guilt out for each and every one. If there are two pieces of fat before an individual, one forbidden, one permitted, and he ate one without knowing which piece was forbidden, and then afterward there were two other pieces of fat before him, one forbidden and one permitted, and he ate one without knowing which piece was forbidden, he must bring a provisional guilt offering for each instance of consumption. Since he was aware of his uncertainty in each instance, the halacha is according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, even though the sages disagree with him, because the Amoraim explain his opinion in detail. Rambam Sefer Kabbalah Hilchos Shagagot 8:7. See the Ketzer Mishnah there of his instances of consumption. If after each instance he became aware that he might have eaten forbidden fat, Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, and in the name of Rabbi Shimon, said in the name of Rabbi Shimon, he brings only one provisional guilt offering. As is stated with regard to provisional guilt offering, he shall bring an unblemished ram for guilt offering to the priest, and the priest shall make an atonement for him concerning his unwitting transgression, wherein he unwittingly transgressed and knew it not. In Leviticus 5:18, this wording teaches that the Torah included many instances of unwitting transgressions in one provisional guilt offering. One brings one provisional guilt offering, even if he committed many unwitting transgressions. Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan disagree as to how to understand the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. With regard to which case did he say that one brings a separate sin offering for each and every one of his instances of consumption? Reish Lakish says here Rabbi Yehuda Nasi taught that awareness of the uncertain status separates the act with regard to sin offerings. If it later became known with certainty that he actually eaten forbidden fat both times, he'd be allowed to bring two sin offerings for the two instances of consumption, despite the fact that the two actions were separated only by awareness of the uncertain status, because such awareness is sufficient to separate the two acts. And Rabbi Yochanan said Rabbi Yehuda Nasi does not mean to say that awareness of the uncertain status separates the acts with regard to sin offerings. He merely established a principle just as definite awareness in general separates the acts with regard to sin offerings. Was a footnote, Kishem, Shiadias Vedai Ba'almo, Mischalkos Lachatos. Just as definite awareness separates two prohibited actions with regard to liability to bring a sin offering, so too awareness of uncertain status separates those actions with regard to liability to bring a provisional guilt offering. Therefore, if one ate 5 olive bolts of forbidden fat in one lapse of awareness, and then became aware that he might have sinned with regard to one of them, and later became aware that he might have sinned with regard to the second one, and then with regard to the rest, he is liable to bring a provisional guilt offering for each one of them. And that's the Rambam Sefer Kabbalah Hilchos Shagagot 8:8. E.g., where one ate forbidden fat and then became aware that it was definitely forbidden fat that he had eaten, and then forgot and once again ate forbidden fat, so too awareness of the uncertain status separates the act with regard to provisional guilt offerings, but awareness of the uncertain status does not separate the act with regard to sin offerings. If the awareness between the acts was only awareness of the uncertain status, he does not bring a sin offering for each act when he later learns with certainty that it was forbidden fat that he had eaten. Evidently, Rabbi Yochanan maintains that awareness of uncertain status is not like definite awareness, and Reish Lakish maintains that it is like definite awareness. This contradicts what they said above. The Gemara comments, granted, the apparent contradiction between one statement of Rabbi Yochanan and the other statement of Rabbi Yochanan is not difficult, as one can explain that Rabbi Yochanan is precise in his wording. As he says, here with regard to impurity in the temple, they made awareness of the uncertain status like definite awareness, but they did not do so everywhere in the entire Torah. There is a basis for this distinction, as here, with regard to impurity in the temple, awareness at the beginning is not written explicitly in the Torah, but rather it is derived from and it is hidden from him, Leviticus 5:2. Minelam hu daka asay. The fact that the verse states, and it is hidden from him, indicates that at some point he had awareness. This is not explicitly stated in the verse, but understood from the context. Therefore, one can say that even awareness of uncertain stages should be considered awareness with regard to impurity in the temple, which indicates that there must be some awareness that became hidden from him, and for this, awareness of the uncertain status suffices. But by contrast, they did not make awareness of the uncertain status like definite awareness everywhere in the entire Torah, as is written, or if a sin which he has sinned becomes known to him, Leviticus 4:28, which indicates that in general we require full-fledged awareness at the beginning. But for Reish Lakish, rather than interpreting this brayta concerning the two paths in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shmuel, who does not require any awareness whatsoever at the beginning, they interpret it in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Huda Nasi, who holds that awareness of uncertain states is like definite awareness. The Gemara explains, Reish Lakish teaches us this, that with regard to impurity in the temple, Rabbi Shmuel does not require any awareness at the beginning. The Gemara challenges, isn't it obvious that Rabbi Shmuel does not require any awareness at the beginning, since he has no superfluous verses from which to derive such a requirement? Rabbi Akiva learns from the superfluous verse, and it is hidden from Leviticus 5:4, that awareness at the beginning isn't necessary. Rabbi Shmuel says the verse serves to teach another halacha, that one is liable to bring an offering for lapse of awareness that he was entering the temple. The Gemara rejects this challenge. Lest you say, when Rabbi Shmuel does not accept this halacha requiring awareness at the beginning, it means that he does not derive it from a verse, but accept it as a tradition. To counter this, Reish Lakish teaches that according to Rabbi Shmuel, there is no requirement whatsoever for awareness at the beginning. And I'll give you a summary of Perek 2. The precise wording used by the Torah teaches that one is liable to bring an offering for unwittingly entering the temple in a state of ritual impurity, or unwittingly partaking of sacrificial foods in a state of ritual impurity. Only if initially he was aware of the basic components of the prohibition, and afterward he forgot them, and in the end he was notified about what he had done. His initial awareness need not include the final details, e.g. the source of his ritual impurity or its measure, but he must have basic knowledge that he was impure. It is accepted as halacha that this unwitting transgression can involve one of two lapses of awareness. A lapse of awareness with regard to the ritual impurity, i.e. one forgot that he had contracted impurity, or a lapse of awareness with regard to the temple or the sacrificial food, i.e. he forgot he was entering the temple or partaking of sacrificial food. If one forgets either or both of these, enters the temple or partakes of sacrificial food in a state of impurity, and then becomes aware of what he has done, he is liable to bring a sliding scale offering for his unwitting transgression. If he acted intentionally, he is liable to receive karet. If there were witnesses to his transgression and they had forewarned him, he is liable to receive lashes and is exempt from karet. Two questions remain unresolved. Does a lapse of awareness with regard to ritual impurity also include a lapse of awareness with regard to the halacha of impurity? And is a lapse of awareness with regard to the location of the temple considered a lapse of awareness for which one is liable? As one who enters the temple in a state of ritual impurity is liable to bring an offering, it was necessary to clarify the physical boundaries of the temple. It was ruled that the area of the temple included the temple courtyard, both the original area of it and the area that was later added to it. When adding to a consecrated area, i.e. to the city limits of Jerusalem or to the temple, a special procedure which involves a king, a prophet, the Om Vatumim, the Sanhedrin, and the two thanks offerings must be followed. The addition to the temple is done not with two thanks offerings, but with the remainder of a meal offering. Any area that was not consecrated in this manner does not assume the full sanctity of the original area being added to. With regard to one who became impure in the temple courtyard itself and forgot about this, if he bowed or tarried in the court longer than the time it takes to leave the temple by the shortest route, he is liable to bring an offering. He is liable both for the violation of the prohibition against entering the temple in a state of impurity and for the violation of the positive mitzvah to leave the temple, which is incumbent upon one who is impure. A similar halacha, although it works in the opposite direction, relates to a man who is engaging in intercourse with a woman who is ritually pure. And in the course of the intercourse, she informed him that she was experiencing menstrual bleeding. In such a case, it is prohibited for him to immediately withdraw. Rather, he must wait until he has lost his erection and only then withdraw. If he withdraws immediately, he transgresses both a positive mitzvah and a prohibition. Introduction of Perek 3. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that takes his name in vain. In Exodus 27, and you shall not swear by my name falsely, so that you profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. In Leviticus 19:12. Or if anyone take an oath clearly with his lip to do evil or do good, whatever it be that a man shall utter clearly with an oath, and is hidden from him, and when he knows of it, be guilty of one of these things. Leviticus 5:4. This chapter will explore the halachot of two types of oaths: an oath on an utterance and an oath taken in vain. It will explain the differences between these two oaths with regard to their general definition and the specific halachot. It will also describe the punishment as well as the atonement process for taking each oath falsely. In the case of an oath or on an utterance, the Torah specifies that an oath is taken to do evil or to do good, indicating that an oath of this kind pertains to a future act that is defined as either good or evil. It is therefore necessary to determine whether an oath on an utterance takes effect in a situation where doing good or doing evil is not applicable. It is similarly necessary to determine the state of an oath that concerns the past, and whether an oath on an utterance can be made with regard to both positive mitzvot and prohibitions. This chapter will address several questions as to how an oath takes effect, such as whether an oath with regard to some substance that does not mention a specific amount presupposes a minimum measure, or whether even the smallest amount is included. It will also analyze the meaning of different expressions, determining what they mean when used in an oath. Other issues that will be explicated in this chapter include the nature of an unwitting violation of an oath for which one is liable to bring an offering, the punishment for uttering a false oath, and the halacha with regard to cases where more than one oath was taken concerning the same matter. The Torah discusses breaking an oath on an utterance in the context of liability to bring a sliding scale offering without ever stating explicitly which prohibitions involved in Leviticus 5:4-13. Also, in the Torah explicitly states, "You shall not swear by my name falsely" in Leviticus 19:12, and "you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain" in Exodus 27. This chapter will clarify when a particular oath falls under each of one of these categories. Mishnah: Shevuah Shetayim Shehem Arba Shevuah She'ochal V'shelo Ocha V'shachalti V'shelo Achalti. With regard to oath attesting to the truth about an utterance, which when violated render one liable to bring a sliding scale offering, there are two types that are actually four types. The initial two oaths, which relate to utterances about the future and are explicitly prohibited in the Torah, are "On my oath I will eat," or "On my oath I will not eat." These are expanded to four to include oaths concerning utterances about the past. "On my oath I ate," "On my oath I did not eat." If one says, "On my oath I will not eat," and then ate any amount, even less than an olive bulb, he is liable. This is the statement of Rabbi Akiva. And the rabbi said to Rabbi Akiva, "Where do you find that one who eats any amount is liable?" leading you to say that this person is liable. Rabbi Akiva said to them, "And where do you find the one who speaks and is liable to bring an offering for it? As his oath taker merely speaks, I takes an oath and brings an offering for it." What's the footnote? Shezeh midaber umevi carbon. Rabbi Akiva explained that his liability derives from the violating his oath and not from the act of eating, which is not in itself prohibited. Accordingly, the measure for which one is liable is not the usual one associated with the prohibition of eating, but any amount. Since in eating any amount, he is breaking his word, says Rashi. The Gemara asks, is this to say that the phrasing an oath as "on my oath I will eat" always means I will take an oath that I will eat? The Gemara raised a contradiction from a mission in Dam 16a. If one says, "On my oath I will not eat of yours," what does that mean? Shavuah lo ocha lecha. If one says to another, "On my oath I will not eat of yours," or if he says, "The oath I will not eat of yours," or he says, "By oath I will not eat of yours," he is prohibited from eating the other's food due to the oath. Rambam Sefer Haflah Hilchot Shevuot 4:22 Shulchan Aruch Yodeah 237:11. Or, "On my oath I will eat of yours." That is to say, that which I eat of yours is forbidden to me by oath. Rashi. Alternatively, I am prohibited by oath from eating your food. Rabbeinu Chananel. Or, "Not on my oath I will not eat of yours." Lo shavuah shelo ocha lecha. Not on my oath I will not eat of yours. Rashi explains that the oath is to be understood as that which I do not eat of yours shall not be included in the prohibition of the oath, indicating that anything he eats of the other person is forbidden.